Bot fans, welcome once again to another episode of Red Square, Blue Square, your go-to for BattleBots recap and reaction. This is episode number 5. I'm your host, Richard Tiemann, and we have not one but two fantastic guests yet again. We're on a roll here at Red Square, Blue Square. So without further ado or any more delay, let's introduce you to them. In the Red Square, it's not just ice cold, it's Sub-Zero. Logan Davis. Welcome, Mr. Davis. How you doing?
Thank you, Richard. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
And in the Blue Square, she's the reason the fan show was upgraded to PG-13 for a period of time and still one of the most played videos in fan show history. The lovely, the talented Valkyrie herself, Leanne Cushing. Welcome, Leanne. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, considering everything. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm glad to hear you guys are in high spirits. Thanks again for joining me. Wow. They advertised it as one of the best fight cards in BattleBots history. I have all my notes here. And stop! In the name of BattleBots, and if you have not watched episode 6 yet, go back and do so right now. Watch it twice while you're at it because it's that good. And then come back and watch the rest of Red Square, Blue Square from this point moving forward. So, ready or not, here we go. We had a stacked fight card, and you, Leanne, you started things off, which I was a little surprised. I was like, is this going to be a dud fight? Because Valkyrie, Rotator, it seems like it would be main event worthy. It did not disappoint, came out swinging on episode 6, and I tweeted out during the actual fight, or after I should say, that you are your own bot's biggest fan. Why is that? Why do you love your bot so much?
There's the analogy jokes for your child of the abuse and pain and stress and late nights and lack of sleep and financial commitment, travel commitment, whatever. But also, I guess there's been obviously company work. I'm a robotics engineer, that you get to see successes of even after I've left jobs, I've watched my design grow into how the company moves. But in this case, it's very real time in your face. And in this case with the Rotator fight, we actually used our new weapon blade Glory that Fred designed and and adding a new blue palette to my color array for Valkyrie. But watching it just not die, and we've had so many fights, but we haven't really had too many trial stress by fire. We usually punch them and they're done. That's any Europe, UK bot. Yeah, those are fighting words, whatever. But we haven't had too many threat to actually damage our robot. We had 3 full Valkyries this year because the chassis were all completely intact. We haven't seen enough damage, and I kept whining to production hey, I will take a harder hit. Let me know, because as an engineer, you want to figure out every failure mode possible. And because of how insane the variables are in the BattleBots, it's not until you're in there that you learn more. And I still want to fight some of the top folks. I still want to face Bite Force. I still want to face Witch Doctor. I still want to face Tombstone, maybe, because our height doesn't really work that well with them. But I want to face the hardest hits, the scariest robots, just to see where our failure points are. And having Rotator was definitely one of those. That was a lot.
Well, congratulations on your victory to start off the episode. I am also a big Valkyrie fan. I need a Sub-Zero hat though, Logan. I don't have any hat swag from BattleBots, so let's hook that up.
See if I can hook you up.
But Leanne, you have been added to the 2-0 list, which is a list that I went over actually on the previous episode of Red Square, Blue Square, and we will talk more about that list later on. Kenny unveiled his top 10, his power rankings. I have made my own top 10. Next fight, and I gotta say, can they not, especially with how this season has started, do any more opening fights with a decision? Because I, especially poor Victor Soto, oh wow.
Gosh, it was nuts. One BattleBots tweeted a thing asking who won of Valkyrie versus Rotator. But the thing is that real time when it happened, I was actually worried they were going to sway it for rotator,
Wow.
not because, you know, they were missing half of their chassis almost,
Yeah.
which they were, but there was a judge that thought that their weapon was still moving because the moment of inertia on that bar is actually less than what our disc was, but our disc did slow and stop because of a thermal oops on our controller. The controller's like, oh, we're too hot, turn off, auto turn off. We'll be able to turn back on in 10 minutes, but not now. So technically we didn't do any damage there. But yeah, like they had to go in, they had to look at it, and I was like, oh no, like
Well, like
I
I
was
said-
really surprised that it wasn't just cut and dry. I thought there was so much damage, and I tell you, you know, Victor's robot is a tank. Like you were cutting through what, like 1/2 inch or 3/8 inch titanium. That is insane. He was just spread all over the box.
But also,
What an
like,
exciting fight.
I was impressed how much damage we did to him, because especially once, like, we Fred and I crazy obsessive watched all videos we could of Rotator previous, as you do.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
we, after seeing the configuration for Tombstone, we're like, well, he's going to give us this. How is our best strategy? And so when he did, like, part of the strategy was never, let's rip part of the frame out.
No. I thought it was impossible.
Yes, me too.
Gigabyte in the win column over Extinguisher, who it feels like if you had to put a list together of all the bots and their fights so far and be like, which one do you think was made on a budget of $4,000 or less, you know, like Jackpot. Extinguisher, I felt bad. Like it's a good concept, but it just looks like it's not that well of a built bot, and maybe my eyes are deceiving me, but that was the impression I got. Kind of like Slapbox, who did get a win also by knockout over Sharko. Is there a better loser in BattleBots than Ed? Like, he's so happy just to be there, right, Logan?
Oh yeah, I think we're all just happy to be there. You know, it's a really great community, and it was really great to see a win for Slapbox. It was really cool seeing them, you know, use that lifter effectively to you know, get a lift and a suplex. And you know, to talk about Extinguisher, you know, John Flack, he's still a young guy. He's still got a couple of things to learn. You know, I think he's doing maybe a little bit too much, and I think he'd be better served to just try and maybe dial it back a little bit, pick you know, 1 or 2 weapons and focus a lot on drive.
Yeah, that's fair. Leanne, what do you think about those 2 bots that got wins? Well, one got a win, Slapbox. The other one, though, Extinguisher. There just need to be some tweaks, maybe.
So Slapbox, since they showed up, I wasn't aware of them. I know that they're part of like the Florida Robot Ruckus, etc. stuff. I really like their design and it pops. I was curious to see how they do. I thought that it was super brave for them to be like, yeah, Tombstone, let's go. So the fact that they came back from that, and then also the robot worked better, was kind of like that was definitely worth watching. And also like Sharko is an art bot, and this one I feel like is even more of an art bot than last year. And so being able to see that, like, you know, a robot that was newer, that cared a ton, who was willing to face Tombstone, could then also put like a very popular art bot in the corner was good. And the flames at the end was just great. Also, like, Ed was going nuts. Like, he was so excited to lose, and like, you don't see that very much. And then yeah, for the Extinguisher Gigabyte fight, the thing with the Extinguisher, the I agree with the dialing back a lot. For example, there's actually a point in like, I help John later on in the show. I think it was like the beginning of the second week, maybe. It was when Valkyrie had a little bit of waiting time between fights or something, and he was working on like Calc 2 homework, and so I actually like am helping out with some of it.
So
but
cool.
like engineers also, math is the truth. Math is everywhere for everything all the time. Like, aerospace engineering means like you care too much about like the airflow around you. Like, you understand that like the patterns are like, yeah, anyways, I could keep going on that. So I think that the dialing back is needed. Like, Ribot is capable of having a modular robot because there are so many of them. And I feel like John Flack's kind of on his own. And so that's harder to take off. Like, you might want to have an array of options for a robot, but you should work on dialing in one or two first and then expanding. And that's actually the advice I gave to Ribot last year. I was like, hey, I know you're looking at like 4 configurations, whatever, but get 1 or 2 working right first. These are going to be the bonus ones. Like one is going to, like they have a small vert and a big vert. And I was like, well, if you get the small vert down, you know you have this in your wheelhouse. And then the second one can just be bonus. And they'll probably behave similar. You just have to switch up wedge stuff. Like that type of idea of like take the small chunk, expand. Whereas I feel Extinguisher has the small chunk being the drive base, done, solid, good to go.
Yeah.
But
Very
then...
Yeah, John and Extinguisher, they're going to be around a while.
Oh,
you'll see him back. You'll see it better.
I'm worried as he keeps going because like every year he's a tactile learner of like he's there and he says I figured out that these were problems I had. Who is here that's fixed those? Let me emulate or learn from that and go. And that keeps continuing every year. So yeah, I expect that it will give it another season or two, and now I'm gonna be like, great, another vert I have to fight. So.
There's always something, isn't there?
Hey, that's my line.
Oh, it's for everyone that's not a vert already. It's the line because that's like what, like the 15 out of the 16 last year was verts. The year before that, 14 out of the 16, maybe 15 also.
Sub-Zero 2021 4-wheel drive vert.
Sigh.
Stop it right now, Logan. We'll talk about you here in a minute. Mad Catter and Malice. I was so hyped for this fight and then so disappointed with how it played out. And I get it. I really do. Like your bot, however many versions of it you bring, however many spare and backup parts you bring, it's the game of attrition. You have to get from your regular season fights through the tournament of what was 16 is now 32. Bounty hunter fight. Like there's a lot going on in a short amount of time. So I get it. If you can avoid taking damage to your bot, do it. But man, this just had so much promise. I want them to meet again. I really do. But we lose one on the 2-0. Malice unfortunately suffers her first loss by knockout by getting permanently wheelied, I guess is what you would call it. Yeah. And then Mad Catter now is solely on the 3-0 list all by himself. Logan, you have this look of disbelief.
It was insane to see that happen. I mean, Malice is just such a dense, well-built robot. I was really questioning Mad Catter's weapon choice. You know, I thought for sure, you know, we were going to see the limits of what kind of abuse Mad Catter could take. But to see it go right into just standing up on its butt, I was like, buddy, no!
I think that I was impressed that it could flip up like that. But also, if you've ever built a combat robot, that's like one of the first steps you do is self-rider, or how can I not get flipped this way that I can't do anything? Like Valkyrie has exposed wheels on the back on purpose. We can't ever flip that way because we'll always, like, we can seg. Like we can do the thing.
Do the thing.
Also, there's some controller dev that we might be able to just casually do that. If we want to actually control it when it's like that, we could drive, which is just Ribot crazy stuff. But
weapon breaking?
No. We have a couple of theories on better weapon breaking, but anyways, so I think with Malice, part of the actual issue was because of the way of the mirroring of the full robot makes it so if you do end up flipped that way, because of how stable balanced it is, you can't actually have an edge in either direction. It also proves that a lot of their internals were purposefully mounted or set into place because they wouldn't be able to wiggle. Like you see cutbacks back and forth of like the weapon driver, like you're kind of stuck. Like it is literally like, I forget if it was Chris or Kenny, they said it was a turtle upside down. I'm like, yeah, like that. There's no way that could be repeated. Like that's their struck by lightning moment. So they're fine now. Like no big deal. Like the worst has happened. Now all they have to put in is like, you know, drill a little nubbin on the back, and that won't ever happen. Like, it's the easiest. Yeah, it's the easiest fix.
I was rocking back and forth with them on TV. I'm like, come on.
I was blowing.
Wiggle. Oh my god! And then like the little like 3-pound robot, like pew, with the flames, just like literally putting flames on the fire. The fire being the losing, but like Yeah.
It was
I was watching with a couple coworkers, and one of them was like, ah! I was like, yes. He's like, wait, no, there's no way I can balance it. It's 250 pounds.
Yeah.
I'm like, like, tell me more. This is great.
It leads us to our next fight. Tantrum, they get a win over Adam 94 by knockout, but this is another issue where we see a non-self-riding bot. And Logan, you're a flipper. There were no flippers on this episode tonight, and but that's like BattleBots 101. You will probably encounter a flipper bot, and so you need to be able to self-ride. So I don't know if this was just part of the learning curve, if they didn't think about that, because I do know that you guys have sacrificed certain features on your bots before, dependent on who you're fighting. Like if you do have a self-ride, like what was Tantrum, perfect example. They took off the fists to put in more batteries. So there's a modification right there. But what do you guys think? Like, is Adam 94, is this just, beginner's bad luck, I suppose?
I think Tantrum's so low, and he does the ground game so well. I think it's definitely a gamble to not have a means of self-riding for him. But to get that far with a robot that is not capable of operating upside down or self-riding, it's tough. It's got to be maybe just something that a beginner overlooks. I also wonder if his puncher could get him back over.
Apparently during our fight he said that the puncher was actually stuck when we first started, but because when we drove up, it knocked off one of the solenoids off of one of the arms and it freed it.
I miss the puncher. I miss Lucky. Lucky was a fun bot that did the punching thing. The shove.
Yeah, another flipper.
Another flipper.
We need more flippers. Yeah.
All right. Next fight, second to last one. Pain Train, first BattleBots win on their resume, and good for them over Smee. Now, this bot, I'm a big fan of thinking outside the box, but I am not sold on this design yet. Logan, when you first saw Smee, what was your initial thought, and what do you think 2 fights in now for him?
I had been watching Smee as a 3-pounder, which didn't have any weapons, and I thought it was an interesting concept. One of those kind of almost like a bike rack that can kind of corral the other guy into a corner for
I
3
will agree
minutes.
with that. After watching the Hyper fight, I do see that with Smee consistently. Like even his first fight with Sharko, same thing.
24 minutes in, the bike rack got brought up. I was like, I know it's gonna come up. I know it is.
I think it's a really cool design. I'm so excited to see people try new things and try to shift that meta around. I was excited to see him bring some spinners onto the corners. That was a fight I really wanted because I feel like I could blow that thing apart with a good flip. I really want to try that. I think I'd blow it apart. I think hinges, you've got that leverage at the far end. I think it would have a hard time dealing with that forward.
Easiest way to throw out the robot if it's conjoined at the center and you flip only one side out of the arena.
Ooh.
There's definitely a way for the corner saw dealios to do better, or for them to iterate and grow on those. But at that point, you're now looking at a partially compromised Gemini that is now just conjoined with weight that won't be able to go into either robot for strength.
I think that robot was surprising that it was just kind of built out of hopes and dreams. It was intense to go over there and see them 3D printing gears and hubs and pulleys. Your robot is built with this? Holy cow.
Yeah, I like that Pain Train was able to get in the win column. That one did go to split decision. So there were, I think, 6 fights, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 fights. Only 2 were decision. So that was good. Several knockouts, again, seems to be the theme and trend of this particular season, which brings us to the main event. And wow, okay, so that happened. It was Uppercut over Sawblaze by knockout. And Kenny had unveiled his top 10 before this fight, And I don't know when he did his top 10 and where you guys were in the filming and a correlation to the episodes being aired, but there were some names that were a bit head scratchy. He had 10 Gruff, 9 Sawblaze, 8 Beta, 7 Valkyrie, 6 Rotator, 5 Bloodsport, 4 Witch Doctor, 3 Hydra, 2 Endgame, and 1 Tombstone. And if I was going to make a top 10, which I did, but even before this fight, Sawblaze would have been, I think, top 3. Him and Whiplash's fight was one of the best of the season, and that was episode number 1. So my top 10 after the conclusion of episode 6, so we'll give Kenny a pass and say, I don't think you're wrong, just maybe some of these are a bit misplaced. 10 and 9 is hard for me because they're both victims of decisions. So it's Kraken, Rotator, but it could easily be Rotator, Kraken in 10 and 9. Then I have 8 is Endgame, 9 is Mad Catter, 6 is Valkyrie. And then I have 5 is Tombstone, 4 is Hydra, 3 is Bloodsport, 2 is Sawblaze, and number 1 is Uppercut. And I think a lot of what I factor in is the strength of bot, opponents, and victory and everything like that. And Leanne, yes, I know you are disgruntled by my top 10, but I still think that you are...
People love Bloodsport. I've been teaching their weapons kiddo stuff. Like, since this season closed, he's been pinging me asking for support on stuff. You rank the teacher below the kiddo robot. Also, I would take half of their opponents over who we get. Totally. Throwing it out there. Not just this year, but last year too.
That is fair. And the top 5, I feel, could go a lot of ways. And Leanne, even though you're at 6 on my list, you're still, I feel, very top 5 worthy. It was hard for me to put Hydra in the top 5, the top 10 at all, really, because I know it's this is that bot that, like Tombstone, they're a great bot, but that huge fight just haunts me. I'm just but Logan, you and I talked with Leanne before we started recording, and as a fellow flipper, and since we couldn't stay away from it on this episode, we might as well go right back to it.
Sorry, my
but
fault.
Tell me why it wasn't a modification put onto the flipper itself to make that thing a longer flipper, even if it's not flipping huge, it's hitting its undercarriage. I mean,
there's
instead of
so much
what it did.
Force. There's so much force and leverage when you do that. That bike rack that he put on there was built out of hopes and dreams. It was very thin wall tubing, and to be able to put that onto a lever arm and launch it at 1,000,000 miles an hour, it probably would have broken their flipper arm. It would have collapsed. It wouldn't have worked.
But even a smaller version of it, though, a little, width.
You can get away with doing some sort, if you did material and material at where the flipper is to do more of an extended wedge or something and get more surface area, then that could be an option. But also...
But then you have to take the hits.
No, but also I was going to say devil's advocate here of literally Jake knows how to drive.
He does. Well.
I don't want to face that robot ever. But not because of the worrying about flipper part, is because I know there's a really solid drivetrain there, and I know he knows how to hit the angles. I think that without the bike rack, the don't touch me, you can't touch me, you're not punching me, you're not doing anything, the little brother bullshit. Look, sorry. The little brother.
Well, there goes that rating again.
I caught myself a little bit. A middle schooler would tell me I swore. But I would say that that type of method isn't worthy, and Jake's a good enough driver. I think he would I was expecting Hugh to get flipped around, and I was expecting Hydra to probably have the upper hand, partially also because Jonathan was still figuring out brushless, and so that was already a lesser than huge of the previous 2 seasons. So doing the bike rack method of pinning and not being able to even back up and not backing up enough for Hugh to have an option to move at all.
I think we'll get a different rule set out of it next year. Right. But this is a smart sport with some really switched on audience. and some really clever competitors, and they just did what you'd expect. They found the angles.
Well, speaking of next year, clearly BattleBots has intentions on reviewing and modifying, changing some rules, but I've been a fan of the idea of having like special guest referees, special guest judges, and of course I would hope that they would pick me for one of those roles selfishly. But the people that are there for a reason. They know what they're doing. But the judges, like, you've got to have more of an alumni Rolodex than those three. Why do you think they haven't, and maybe they will next year? Would you be a fan of them rotating judges? Leanne, what do you think of the idea?
Well, firstly, the judges get paid. And in some cases, scenario-wise at least, auditing the whole thing, especially because they get a trailer, they do get paid better than the builders. Data point. I feel like that if you're going to have judges on a show where the success of a robot, a success of a team, is tied to judges' decisions, which sadly happens more than KOs, you need them to do their homework, and you need them to not just be like, oh, they're on this team this one time, or like, oh, back in the day. Because back in the day, robots weren't moving at 20 to 30 miles an hour with these impressive, insane hits. The reason, like, not to little bit, but like, yeah, okay, I was told I had one of the best fights in robot history. I'm thrilled by that. But also, I feel like the capacity of so many teams that are now competing at BattleBots to have the same sort of like super sparks, 3 minutes, there's a lot of those. And so if you're a judge and you can't keep up, you shouldn't just like not be able to review the tape. Like I feel like there's not enough like second passes. Like, my fight the judges went and looked inside, and like they observed that Rotator's frame was ripped apart, and that's why we won. But we almost didn't win because they almost did go in, and that means they were missing a lot.
I don't know if I entirely agree with that. I think the judges have had a lot of input into the rules and how how they go into scoring and judging. I think they've done a pretty good job of having a wide base of different kinds of competitors. And, sure, they're from an older school, like myself, but, they come from different backgrounds, whether it's a control bot or, right, a spinner, so you have a pretty, a varied base of backgrounds there. And like I said, they've all fought in the reboot. It's interesting. We've had guest judges before in the past. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing it.
I'll do it.
I think Richard would be an amazing judge. He's been very active in the community.
Yeah, maybe not anyone from the Marvel universe ever again, like the ABC days, but like the guest judges there of just like, oh, you work for Nerdist, come on the show. Like that not so much. Like it's like when Simone Gertz goes against like Will/Huge, like drives Will's robot in his YouTube thing. She has no idea. She's terrified. She's like, I've never driven a robot before, and she's known as the robot queen. Like, come on, like, and she was a judge. Like, I feel like there's a lot of folks that can easily make calls. Like, actually, like yeah, I'd say Richard or like the some of the other groups would be like some of the other fan podcasts, telecasts, whatever people are already going to be more knowledgeable than some of the older alum that haven't been as involved and as involved recently, I guess.
Well, Richard, I got a question for you. You're a fan of so many different sports. Are there any other sports where the judges have never been involved in the competition outside of judging?
I was trying to think. So I watch a lot of different pop culture shows and events, and one that my wife and I have really gotten into the last couple of years is The Masked Singer. And they have their experts, their judges, who don't have a say though in who moves on and who leaves, because it's up to fan voting. But the point is that you have Robin Thicke, who is an acclaimed recording artist. You have Nicole Scherzinger from the Pussycat Dolls, another acclaimed recording artist. So two from the industry. Then you have Jenny McCarthy, who is their pop culture expert, whatever that
means. Gossip person, whatever.
Yeah, right? And then you have Ken Jeong, Dr. Ken, who is, I think, comedic relief. So you have these people that have experience in the industry of what you're judging, and then you have a person with a kind of an opinion based on what they follow, and then somebody who's just like, this is a whole new world for me. And it's the same with America's Got Talent and things like that. So in actual sports, I couldn't tell you offhand. I'd have to get back to you on that. But in the world of pre-recorded competitions like BattleBots, yes, absolutely there is.
There's especially with this event this year, was like there was so much to keep track of with the safety protocols and everything, that like maybe that's part of also why like things went a little bit fast and loose, because like, hey judges, you ready to do this again? Okay, it's in 2 weeks. Like it was a very quick turnaround. So it's possible like there wasn't really a good way for them to be even more aware of the new set of rules, because they weren't aware that it was actually going to go through filming.
6 episodes in, we've only seen Whiplash once, we've seen Mad Catter 3 times, and then we've seen some other bots kind of just sporadically here and there. But given the circumstances and everything, and Logan, we'll start with you, how do you feel about the season and watching it play out now, as far as just the flow of everything?
It was definitely a different kind of season and a different kind of event. You know, the COVID protocols, not having an audience, you know, definitely changed that dynamic. But now that I'm at home and I'm watching it on TV, it's probably the most exciting season I've seen.
I would say that as far as the season is playing out, one of the things that stands out to me is that like by not having to have an audience, you don't need to care as much about how many angles you're getting of footage. The season is a lot more. I think that the newer competitors are terrifying. Some of them have just gotten into the sport the last like 2 years, and like I know Paint Train with Shred Bro, that was his first like 3-pound robot, and he just like wiped the arena clear of competition in Connecticut. He's like New York City guy, and then he like put together this 250 in like almost no time.
Yeah,
and
like a month, right?
Has a win. He's a 1-1 robot already. So it's like, like.
She's always got an opinion, and Logan, you always have an amazing beard. I love your quarantine beard. So thank you for sharing that with us. And you guys, it's been a lot of fun to unpack what was an action-packed version of BattleBots episode 6. And I've been wanting to get you guys on for a while. Leanne, you are awesome. Thank you so much. And Logan, thank you. And I'm looking for future guests. I know Paul Ventimiglia, like you mentioned, I want him on. And since I know, as informed to me by a good friend, that he's apparently not on social media and hard to get a hold of, if watching, then I want him to hear this. Martin Mason, I want you on Red Square, Blue Square soon. You hear this, brother? I want it. All right. I want to get Martin Mason on the show. So hopefully he watches this. I don't know how if he's not on social media, but somebody will get a hold of him someday. But you guys, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. You guys are always great to have on.
Oh, thank you so much for having us.
It's been great. Nice to see you again, Logan.
You too, Leanne.
We'll see you guys next week after an all-new episode of BattleBots Discovery, Thursday nights, 8/7 Central, Red Square, Blue Square, Fridays at whenever we upload. So you guys have a great rest of your night and take care.